Welcome to 90 Minutes with Neville Southall. I'm your host, James Rogers. And we're here today with the big man himself, Neville Southall, and also the other members of our podcast team, Keith Mullen and Dave Feely. We've got a very special guest today. We've got former Liverpool and England footballer, Jamie Carragher, Sky Sports pundit as he is now. And let's not forget, most importantly of all, he is a childhood Evertonian. So Jamie, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, gang.
Welcome, Jamie.
Welcome, Jamie.
Cheers, Keith, Dave, James, and the main man himself, my hero, Neville Southall. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Jamie. Jamie, can I ask you a question then?
Go on.
What's all the bollocks talk on a Monday night about false nines and what is it? I don't go. Who's changed all that terminology?
I know, honest to God, you've got to go with the flow. All these managers talk now, isn't it? So we've got to try and keep up with the kids, as they'd say. But there was a few false nines I watched when you were playing. Neville played for Everton, I can assure you.
Was it? So what I find funny, right, is that they all talk about 6 or an 8. But what happens if you're 6 or 8 is different from my 6 or 8?
Yeah, I can assure you. I mean, to be honest, when you speak about that, it's interesting that, because the first time I actually heard that terminology was watching my son play in the academies. So when you go to the academies now, I don't know if that was just a Liverpool thing at the time, but when you hear young players talking now, they talk like that in terms of numbers. They're talking, it's not even just a midfield player, it's a defensive midfield player or an attacking midfield player. I don't know if it's like a Spanish Barcelona thing, because everyone, probably in the last 10 years is trying to probably influence or be influenced by Pep Guardiola, and I think a lot of it comes from that. But I agree with you, Nev. It's not certainly the way I was brought up, and I'm sure you're the same. But when we're doing the TV, we've got to try and keep up with the terminology that's getting used by the coaches and the players right now. But I'm with you. What's a 6 or 8? It's a midfield player, isn't it?
Well, I think so. And a false 9 is somebody who can't play up front and can't play in midfield.
Well, that's Brett Angel, isn't it?
Well, he can play up front. He just doesn't know what he's doing.
False
9, then that'll be me then.
I had a response on Twitter about something about that. The very first day of the World Cup, I put the radio on in the morning, and there was a kid getting interviewed on the radio, and he was talking about exactly what you two have just been discussing about this new nomenclature, what we use now, things we've never said before, and we just accept as midfield. Or they used to use wing backs before my time, and then I'd read about wing backs, and by the time I played football and watched football, wing backs had gone out, and you had wingers, fullbacks, and midfielders. Well, this lad he's getting interviewed on national radio, and he went, "Oh yeah, him, yeah, because you'd pick him because he's a CDM."
Yeah.
A CDM. And I thought at the time, it's not actually Guardiola. It is that too, the main football culture. But specifically for this generation, it's PlayStation, it's FIFA. That's how they describe them in FIFA. These kids live their lives on FIFA from when they can literally turn on the telly. And they're still doing it at 35 when the girlfriend's ringing them to go out on a Friday. So I think I genuinely, truly do believe it's just seeped into that generation's culture, and now they discuss it like, so that's my point about relevance.
No, I agree with you, Dave, but you haven't what is the terminology for the CDM? What's that mean?
Central defensive midfielder.
Perfect, got it on one. Are you doing anything next Monday?
To be it lasts about 4 hours with him.
No, but I'm saying that is literally the description on FIFA. Yeah, that's what it'll tell you on FIFA, and he just came out with it and they just accepted it. The fella who was interviewing, he understood what he meant and just carried on going. Anyway, I noticed it. Here we go.
I'm sure it's not cash down monthly for FIFA now.
No. I saw what you did there, big lad.
I thought
you get the big money.
I thought CDM was that oil you buy.
Yeah.
No, don't be going there now, boys. Let's keep it winning.
Yeah, keep it to football.
So what have you made of the World Cup, Jamie?
The actual stuff on the pitch, I must say I've enjoyed it. I think it was it had a little spell where there was a few 0-0s, and you're thinking, oh, this could go either way. Where we talk about it being a great World Cup, or the quality of the football is it not so good. And I think we got through that, and I think some of the knockout games are really good. I'm not shy, or I've certainly gone on record before the tournament. I just think it was a disgrace that the World Cup was here. Never mind what's going on in their country. We know that's wrong. The fact that this was corrupt at the time, it happened 10 years ago. Everybody, or every man and his dog, knows it was corrupt, but we still allowed it to go there. We've had to move leagues all over the world to fit a World Cup in now, in the obviously the middle of the season. And then the problems that you've got there. And I think that the one argument that people use to justify it being there, it can be, the World Cup can be something for them to change, or, the whole world's eyes are on them, and we can use this to help them change or move forward in the future and be a better civilized country. But I've got the total opposite view. It's, you dangle a carrot of the World Cup. If the World Cup should be, going to that part of the world, and it is the World Cup, it should be for everybody. I agree with that. But it can be used as a force for good by saying, well, if you don't change, or you don't change how you treat different types of people, you won't get the World Cup. So until we see change, and it might be over a 5-10 year period, it's not just to appease someone to get the World Cup, then you can have a major tournament, then you could have the Olympics. But not while there's still these problems going on in the country. And we hope that they change, in the future, because let's be honest about it, not many people are going to care or worry or think too much about what's going on in Qatar as soon as the Premier League kicks off on Boxing Day.
Do you think, right? Because I've got a funny feeling that the Premier League and the European leagues have stood still, and all the other countries have got better, and that's what we're seeing. We're not seeing Europe dominate like we normally do. We're seeing a decline in European football, and a better one in the Africans and South American teams.
Well, certainly the African nations, Neville, there's no doubt. I mean, what you see in Morocco doing it in this tournament, I didn't think we'd see a team get to the semi-final. I think we've had African teams get to the quarterfinals before, and then you think that's when the real quality steps up, if you like, the notorious big South American teams or countries and European nations. But Morocco haven't even had a fluky draw. Sometimes you can get a little bit of luck with the draw. They beat Portugal and Spain. Spain not so long ago were dominating world football. Portugal won the Euros not so long ago as well. And the results that they've had, and what fascinates me with Morocco is the coach has only been there, I think, about 100 days or something, just over 3 months, which is fascinating. But listen, again, it's the World Cup. It's in a different part of the world, and to see new players and new countries at the latter stages, I love them, because the one thing that I think I miss from when I was a kid watching a World Cup is we didn't know all the players. There was a mystique about even the Brazilians or the Italians. Now it feels like we know every player of the big nation. So yeah, I mean, perfect example was, I was speaking about, because obviously they're all Blues, Richarlison. So if this World Cup was in like 1986 and Richarlison was playing in Brazil for someone, or in Europe, we'd all be going, wow, Richarlison, because he's been unbelievable in the tournament. Because we know him, and he's a good player, don't get me wrong, but you still go, well, he's sub at the moment for Tottenham. He's this, he's that. His good bits, his faults. As fans, we know too much about him, and it loses that sort of that fantasy element I felt that I used to have as a kid. And you see this player you'd never seen before, and you go, wow. And I think right now that's what the Moroccan team are doing. What's that, Dave? Sorry.
Mystique with it. Yeah, it was romance. I'll give you one. I seen one on Twitter the other day on that particular point. The kid Sarr at Watford, the winger, Ismail Sarr or whatever.
Yeah.
That conversation about him, where if you just watched him come out of nowhere and you'd go, he knows what time of day it is, this lad here. But because you're watching him and he's in a team what's underperforming and he gets judged on this, we think we know everything about these players, and then they come out on a, and this is a standard, whether you agree with it being there or not, that's the metric by which you measure. There is no higher than international football, you both played it. Yeah. So my point being, he gets to that level and shines, and yet do you see what I'm saying to you? It takes away the mystique of it. it's too much information on one certain level. It's like you're just bombarded with, so the expectation rises with it.
And I just think it's that, but there's also, it just feels like people are so negative now. You know, I think that's with social media, and we're all, you know, supporters are tribal. They always fight for their own players against others. But there was obviously the situation in the last few weeks in the last week or so, I think, where Pele's, you know, illness-wise is, you know, he's got a battle. He's at the World Cup. People are obviously speaking about him because that's what he's famous for. And someone put like a montage of his best bits on Twitter, and the first reply was just totally negative, you know, but like, oh, he never played against anyone. The organisation was this. He never did this. He never did. I'm like, this is Pele. This is like a fella who's won 3 World Cups. I'm like, what chance has anyone else got?
No,
you know, it's just, that's the world we live in now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Unfortunately, do you think, right? So, because I think Wales should pull out that Nation League, you know, that stupid one, because they all. Right, and the thing is, they play against them week in, week out in the league, so they don't actually come across anybody different because everybody plays the same way. So I think, one, they should get out of that league. 2, I think the abundance of world-class players has fallen dramatically. 3, I think the standard of football has fallen dramatically, and the goalkeeping has gone down 90%. I think that this has shown up the worst goalkeeping displays I've seen for a long, long time.
Are you talking about just in the World Cup, Nev?
Yeah.
Do you think a lot of that comes from the fact of, because I think what you're saying, I think could work with defenders as well, because in the past it was just about defending, maybe goalkeeping was just about, you know, keeping the ball out the net. Now there's a lot more to it in terms of they're doing a lot of work technically, they're not doing enough work actually on the actual goalkeeping. I think that may be for central defenders as well. Do you think that's part of the reason? Yeah,
because they settle for just saving the ball. In a way, how to describe it? You don't want, if they make a save, and you see a couple of Jordan Pickford's ones where he pushes it away. He's happy to push it away. Or he's happy because he's pushed it away. They don't care where it goes. They don't care after that. But once he save it, and I'm thinking, well, I'd be getting the bollocking off you for giving corners away. Why are you doing? Why aren't you doing this? So I think, why aren't they catching the ball? How can I class any goalkeeper in the World Cup as world class if they can't catch a ball?
Yeah. Is that coaching that, Nev? Is that the way they're brought up now in academies, or is it foreign influence from managers coming in?
Well, it looks like that every player, bar a few, just does enough to do it. And I look at the way the goalkeepers' techniques have changed. So they come out with their arms wide, like just to block it. And I'm thinking, you've got no control over that arm because you're just having a stiff arm. Do you know what I mean? You're just basically just holding your hands out like a cross. And I'm thinking that's natural position. If it hits you there, where's that going to go? How have you got any way of knowing where that ball's going to go? You're just hoping it hits you. And I'm thinking, if you're in a natural body position, your body will follow the ball. So even if you mess with your hand, it's got a chance of hitting your body. But they all just come on this thing where they just try and make themselves big. But in fact, they don't do enough for me. They just leave so many areas around their body where they can get goals going, and some of them I don't get. They push the ball away and they get up and they go, "Oh, that's a great save." And you're thinking, hang on, what is a great save anymore? A great save to me is when you tell me that you think that he should never have saved it, or if it goes in, why the hell's it gone in? See, I look at the goals in the World Cup and I'm thinking they're shocking, because they should save most of them shots, but they don't. And I don't know why they don't, because I don't. This is what I think, Jamie, deep down, right, is that they never work hard enough at their own game. They never want to be the best of the best of the best. Purely sometimes because they're lazy, and sometimes it's because everybody else stops them. You know, when you were training and you wanted to do extra, you did extra. Yeah. These don't do it now. They don't. Yeah. They don't, because they're told they can't do it. And I think that's one of the reasons why the European football's plateaued, I think, and where you get Morocco and you get all the other countries, they're all enthusiastic. They all got that still sense of innocence about them. They all have a good job, and they're grafting up, right? And they're making things happen for themselves, aren't they?
Do you think some of this is you think some of this is kind of down to obviously the game's changed significantly, hasn't it, over the years, and there's so much money in the game now, and kind of young players are brought through, and all of a sudden they're kind of the best thing in the world and millionaires, even before they're like, of a certain, and before they're out the teens in some cases, and I was talking to Peter Hooton yesterday, about this, Jamie. You know Peter. Mm-hmm. I think you believe you spent quite a bit of time with him at Glastonbury last year,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The less said about
it. So like, enjoyed yourself. And we were talking about it yesterday, and it was that thing about, some people are kind of multi-millionaires just sitting on the bench and happy to be doing so, because that kind of fight for a place might not be there anymore, because of that. But he said something interesting to me yesterday. He was of the opinion, it's pretty much the same as yourself now. He was saying he wasn't overly impressed with the football. He hasn't watched a lot of it. But he turned out to me and he said if it had been Man City had played half them teams, they'd beat them. That's what his opinion was yesterday,
I think you're right when you talk about players who are happy not playing. I think that's something I can never get my head around. This is as much for probably Neville, but I mean, the one person I absolutely despise in every football squad is the third choice goalkeeper. And I'm like, oh my God, I mean, what a job that is. I mean, that must just be the best job in the world. But they stay there for years and they never play. And the worst thing is, especially the ones at the top clubs, they say at the end, they go, we won the league last year, or we won the FA Cup. And I'm like, oh my God, you never even played a game. How embarrassed would you be? But I know you need big squads and you've got to change it, and players. I mean, I couldn't ever accept being a sub. I'd have had to have moved if I was sub at any time. That was just my mentality. But the actual goalkeeping situation, I know you need a backup one. You could come on at any time. But the third choice keepers, and then they start claiming trophies, and oh my God, I can't stand them.
The back goalie third one should be a kid, basically, shouldn't they? Making his way. And then hopefully you can give him a couple of games in the cups or something like that. But
yeah,
it has declined because the whole philosophy's changed, hasn't it? It's not all about being in the first team anymore, is it? It's
not. It's like, I mean, whether it's managers have conditioned players now to sort of get over it mentally, or understand that, they're not going to play every week and things like that. Because, in the past when I was playing, the squads were growing bigger, but it was a bit of a nightmare for the manager to keep everyone happy. But it doesn't seem as if it's as big a problem now. I mean, everyone seems to get on the bench. I think, was it 7 on the bench last year or 9?
Yeah.
Did it go to 7?
Yeah.
The World Cup, I think the whole squad is on the bench, 23 play, the 11, and there's another 11 on the bench. It's just like, these stadiums are getting bigger. These benches are getting bigger.
Right. You're right, it is 9, and you choose 5 from 9. So once you add that to the players already on the park, well, there's 20 before the doctors, and there's 15 of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
These will be able to get a seat in this new stadium.
There's more than you and Peter at Glastonbury. There's more here.
Oh. There's only been one team that I've seen do it differently, which is Holland, where they just went, tell you what, we'll load up the front with the biggest players we got. Now, when you look at all the benches in the Premier League, I bet you none of them have got that type of player, have they?
No, you're right, Nev. I think the reason I like that is that because it was the manager who did it, and the country that did it is a country famed for, total football. Going back a long time, Louis van Gaal's managed Ajax, Barcelona, lots of great clubs. And he still, at the end, wants to play a certain way. And I think, I'm not saying any style of play is right or wrong. You have to find your own way. But the fact like a manager like that went really, route one, what people might describe as, 1970s, 80s, first division football. But it's still got a place in football. And the one thing I don't like about football is, in the World Cup and in the Premier League, is that so many teams play the same. It's like everyone does the same thing. So I used to love the fact that Burnley have gone down now and they had Sean Dyche, but he was completely different. So I used to like watching how people dealt with playing against it. When it give you different things to talk about rather than everyone playing from the back. And I've got no problem with that. It's just nice, certainly in the job I do, when you're talking about football and watching it, to see teams do different things, just to, talk about different things, how it provokes the opposition. And I think you're right, Nev, what they did there. And that was the frustrating thing with me with England. I'm a massive Gareth Southgate fan, but not doing something different from the bench when they had the game there for the kill, I felt. Certainly when it went 1-1 with the Harry Kane penalty, I just wanted them to do something really bold and brave, and I'd rather have made that mistake than the mistake of not wait until France went 2-1 up to make a change.
But your bench is all about alternatives, isn't it? And what I see in the Premier League is that they have the same kind of players. You know, like you look at it, you go, okay, have they got incredible pace on the bench? Well, because they normally try and play it. Have they got somebody who's 6'4", who they got an alternative? So their benches tend to be the same. And I'm thinking, well, what you want as a bench is alternatives to what you've already got, surely, as well as a bit. Do you know what I mean? The likes of Phil.
Yeah, so when they make a change, they're changing like for like. There's no real change. It's just you're just hoping this guy's going to play better than the last fella, but you're doing the same thing. But as you said, it was completely different with Holland, and I agree with you that Nev. What is the bench for? Is it just to change like for like, or completely turn it around to do something different to the opposition?
Because I think if once England got a chance of winning that game, in all fairness, he should have done something different, because France were there for the taking, weren't they?
100%. I thought some of France's defenders were awful in that game. I don't watch them every single week, but I thought the left back and Upamecano, who played at centre back, I thought they were awful, and I just felt they needed more pressure going on them. I was thinking they were going to get sent off. One of them was bound to get a red card, and I just felt we could have done something a little bit bolder. I just think from scoring in the 54th minute, I think Kane scored, and they scored in the 78th. Nearly 25 minutes there. I just think to not have made a change there, to really go for it when we were playing well, I think that was the one thing I'd be critical of the manager on.
I thought, in all fairness, well, the penalties they gave away were shocking. So anything you put in the box, they were panicking. Two, if Harry Maguire is supposed to be one of your best passers, and he's starting off attacks from the back, I'm thinking, I wouldn't like to play in midfield if I got him coming out and trying to. You want somebody to drop off and get the ball off him, don't you, really? Because well, they didn't do that either, did they?
No, they didn't. And that's what I just felt they could have maybe dropped forward a little bit deeper in that period and brought another attacking player on. Then you've got that type of player, I think, Neville, who can really get on the ball. He's a real technician and really go at France. Because even though everyone's saying England played well, I think they did, they still didn't really create that much, because the penalties are huge chances. But if you take the penalties away, because the penalties came from nothing really, it wasn't like it was a chance and someone got brought down. They were absolutely stupid tackles from the French. So besides those opportunities, it didn't feel like there was too much really, where, I think Bellingham had a shot from outside the box in the second half. Kane had something in the first half, but there wasn't a lot of big opportunities. And that's why I just felt they could have gone for it a little bit more when it felt like France were on the ropes.
Do you think that's because of the fear? Is that the fear from the manager or fear from the players?
Well, I think the manager's been criticised for that. And I think it's completely different in the last two, the Italy final and the Croatia semi-final, where both of those teams were actually coming on top and putting England under pressure. Now, it's easier to make changes when you're not playing well. It's obvious, every fella in the crowd can say, oh, this is a problem. We need to do something to stop the opposition. I felt this one was different. I felt this was to actually go and win the game. So England were playing well. So I do think it makes it more difficult as a manager. When your team's playing well, you think, oh, what's a change? We might lose the momentum. But I just felt we still weren't creating enough chances. And France, I think when we all watched the game, we're thinking, certainly wasn't France at its best. And, they were missing 3 or 4 of the best players. I just felt when it went 1-1, it was like, right. Because I think when it went 1-1 and the way England were playing, I think you'd have been disappointed for it to go to penalties. You'd think the game's here. And I just think it was the time to go and just do something, be bold. It may have blew up in his face, but at least you could have said you did something rather than looking back and thinking, we didn't do something. That's the way I'd look at that.
That's his character, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's been criticised for being pragmatic. And in the last couple of tournaments, I could say that, but I would say in this tournament, England have been, they scored lots of goals. They've been exciting to watch. They didn't change against France and go to a back 3. So I think it is slightly different this tournament. But it just felt like something was lacking to make that change from the bench, to change the momentum of the game.
But you have to win that tie at some stage. I couldn't see an Alex Ferguson or Jock Stein or any of the great managers going, actually, we're quite happy to drift along here. They'd have been a lot more positive, I think, and really gone for the jugular.
No, I agree, Nev. And listen, you can't put Gareth Southgate alongside those names you just mentioned. They're the absolute greats. I just think Gareth Southgate, if you just judge him on his actual England and where England were before, but I do think you're getting to that stage now where England, do think every tournament they go into, and I've never really felt this before, but I do think they've got a genuine chance of winning tournaments now. Whereas even when I played, I never believed England, we'd win or, go close to it. And I thought, we'll probably get to the quarterfinals, and that's what we did. But I think this team now, and I think a lot of that's down to Gareth, I must say, in terms of, it feels like there's a real togetherness. It feels like a club team. He's built like a club mentality rather than a country mentality, which was always a problem for us. So I think you'd have to give him huge credit for that. But I just think at the vital moments, can he just make that change that takes England to a better position?
Would they have done better with a Brazilian manager?
I don't think they wouldn't have, to be honest. And I'm not for foreign managers. I don't think it's right. And that's not being xenophobic or whatever else I might be accused of. I just think international football is your best be someone else's best. So, you can't go and bring the Brazilian goalie or centre forward in. So why should you be able to do it as the manager? So for me, what I think Gareth Southgate's proved is you don't need a huge name, a huge figure that we had in the past, because he's done better than an Ericsson or a Capello. And yet we all want a little bit more. Of course, we always do with our managers, but I don't agree that England should have a foreign manager.
I was looking at maybe releasing, or giving the players more freedom. When they're used to it in Brazil and Argentina, they let other people have the freedoms. And when you see some of these now, they still look as if they're playing within themselves. And I think if you'd actually free them up a little bit, they'd will beat us. But I think it's that little bit of keeping them in check. Instead of saying, right, go and express yourselves, go and have a go at it, like you say. And I think it'd be more free for them, be less pressure for them, because they'll be expected to go out and do what they're supposed to do. In Brazil, people just love the dribbling and love Messi and love people like that. So looking at it from the outside, they need to be able to free them players up to be what they really are. And it always looks to me as if they're playing within themselves.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I was critical early on of the deployment of Phil Foden, because for me, I think I'll probably alongside Bellingham, they're the two sort of feels like superstars of the team, the ones who are going to get you off your seat. And I think, credit to the manager in the end, he got there with Phil Foden. I think he showed us glimpses of what he can do, and it'll just be interesting eventually if he can play that central position where we see, as you mentioned before, Nev, like a Messi, or you're talking about a Neymar, where it feels like those players are absolutely central to those teams, whereas at the moment Phil Foden's playing wide. That's where he plays for his club. But it'd just be interesting eventually if you could get to a situation where you had a Bellingham and Foden and maybe a Declan Rice midfield three, where on paper it's really technical and on the front foot, but that's how we're sort of Pep Guardiola midfield would look. You go back to what he's done with De Bruyne and David Silva when he first came in. So I think it'd be good for us if we could get to that stage where you're putting like really your best creative players in the centre and everything goes through them.
Yeah. My last question on the World Cup is, do you think we should have referees from all over the world refereeing the World Cup?
Yeah, I mean, it's my big bugbear, really. And I think the problem with the World Cup is, I think Dave mentioned before that it's the highest level of football you can play. And yeah, international football is, but also, is it the highest level, or does it become a festival of football? So it's almost everybody in the world, let's all come together for this big carnival, this big event. And I think the World Cup is going to 48 teams, I think, I think it's 40 the next time. Now, that means the quality's going down because the extra 10 teams or whatever it is who didn't qualify are now there. And it's, we've got to have a referee from every continent or country, and you're not getting the best. And that is a massive problem. It is a huge problem. I think when you see certain referees refereeing certain games, which, jobs are on the line. Most national team managers will lose their job on the back of a World Cup. If it doesn't go anywhere close to what they're expecting. And that can just be one decision because it's so cutthroat. at a tournament, it's basically, what is it, 7 games to win it. You need a huge slice of luck, and a lot of that comes down to the officials. So I'm with you, Nev. I'd rather have sort of 4 or 5 referees from a certain country at the top level, and use them, you know, and get the better officials there.
And maybe we should swap some of our referees and bring in foreign referees in maybe lower down for now to prove what they're like. So you can bring in all them other referees from around the world up on sort of European football, if you like, and then to get them to a certain level. So if you're going to progress their referee in their country, you know, we have it in Wales where you can't referee in England if you referee in Wales. We've just got one lady referee, right, who's had special permission, and she's been told because if she doesn't referee in the Women's Super League, she'll never get any decent games because she's refereeing a poor league. And that can't be right either, can it? So we need to look at how we progress the referees, I think, as well, and not just not just ours. So
yeah, no, I think you're. To be honest, Nev, that's a shout my dad's been throwing at me for years to make sure I say that on Sky. Why don't we get foreign referees into, you know, when someone's give a bad decision? Why don't we get the best foreign referees?
Can I just make a point on that? The education industry has for 200 years been built on swapping people. You get someone from this university abroad, you bring them to you. You get some of your people, you send them over to there, and you transpose the ideas, and everybody gets better together. It's literally the system, except when you get to football, and then it gets all parochial about how it's got to be this, and you can't let outside. What you want, Jamie, you just said it then about the World Cup. What you want is the best. If you're going out and literally you get paid as a Sky employee to go out and say, this is the greatest league in the world. Well, until we have the greatest standards in the world, that's actually a misnomer. It's the most money-friendly, money-producing league in the world. But until I've seen games, Michael Keane's, that penalty he gave against Michael Keane about 3 years ago at Brighton away in the last 5 minutes still astounds me today that he had 10 minutes to look at it. He came back and still gave the penalty. And I'm sitting here saying, that's then, mate, you are not fit for purpose. Somebody who is better than you needs I'm not trying to be individually specific. I'm just talking generically. The whole level needs to move up. If you're selling this league as what you're selling this league at, the officiating is the aspect of it what drags it down. It really goes on. One day soon, it's going to affect everything. And that's,
but David, is the problem though, yourself and a few Everton supporters, you'd be sending every referee away?
No, I seen what you did there. No, I seen what you did there. Gary Neville would have felt for it.
Atkinson. Who else is?
Oh, mate, listen, I can sit here all day long. I watch every game. So I'm saying, I am used to Everton not getting results. This is not the point here. I'm talking about the standard where it can go, you can have 3 games. Me and you sit, Keith Mullen, in our seats. We sit next to each other at Goodison, and I've done for years. And we had one about 3 weeks ago. The last home game before we played might have been Leicester. And we were just literally looking at each other. Go back through social media, put the date in, and Everton, hashtag Everton, see what it says. And it was like, it truly baffled me. And I've been doing this for a long time. I have seen a lot of football games, and we're supposed to be at the pinnacle here. We're not supposed to be in the dark ages. This is the Enlightenment. This is Da Vinci, and you know that it is. That's what we're supposed to be at. That's what we're selling there. So if you were going to look at one aspect of improvement immediate over the next 5 years, that would be the aspect to put the money into, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's what we all want.
Yeah.
Fair enough. It might have been the only mistake he ever made. And you're twisted now, aren't you? Incredible. Jamie, tell us about your foundation, mate.
To be honest, Nev, it was on the back of the testimonial. I mean, that's something I'm sure you're aware of, that you know, you have that longevity at a club. You had it, you know, I think even longer than me at Everton. You get that testimonial game, and I think in the past, and rightly so, that, you know, it was a chance for players who hadn't, you know, made a transfer, because that was the way of making maybe good money today and in the past, and who'd shown that loyalty to clubs. They had a testimonial game, and, you know, it was a chance for them to make a few quid maybe before they retire, because there was certainly not the funds on offer then for players as there was when I was playing, or certainly today. So yeah, I can totally get that. But I think when it got to players of my generation having testimonials, it wasn't about, you know, taking the money from the gate, if you like, because we've been well rewarded over the years, certainly myself and other players. So I think it's only right, not just me, but other players now put that money to charity or a foundation. So we did that, and we called it the 23 Foundation on the back of my shirt number for Liverpool, and that's been going now. Oh, what are we on now? So we had a 10-year anniversary a couple of years ago, 10-year anniversary dinner, and that's still going to this day, really. So we'll be doing stuff in Alderey in the next few days. We'll go there. We give money out at different times of the year to basically just people. We keep it in the city boundaries, or the Merseyside, if you like, so it doesn't go outside of that. So I'm predominantly trying to help younger people, but the situation with the world that we're in now, or say the world, certainly this country and our city, it's a lot of the money is going to, you know, food banks and helping people get back on the feet at the moment. So yeah, that's what we do. We give the interest of the money accrued from the testimonial away. I sign a lot of memorabilia stuff that we give to people, they pay for. We put that back into the charity. So it ticks along nicely, and yeah, still going strong. Thanks.
That's all right. It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, with your what a job you're doing yourself, though, mate, on the social media. I think it's fantastic. Yeah, you know, the help you're giving other people when you give your accounts up. It always obviously pops up on my timeline, and I think it's a great initiative and a great idea what you're doing, mate. So keep up the good work. Well,
we're going to nick your account one day.
By the look of some of the tweets, I think someone already has.
No, but see, I looked at it, right, in all fairness, Jamie, that if we get you and get Gary Neville and all that, right, we could hit 10 million people in one night for mental health.
It's a great idea, yeah.
Jamie, yeah. Can I get a quick question into you? Yeah. Just before Mel Harvey, who usually does the podcast with us, she's got other stuff going on today, so she can't be here. And, you know, there's a statue of her dad, Colin Harvey, outside Goodison. You know, to get a statue, you're a living person. That's a pretty incredible thing. Like, I live over here in New York, where you actually have a pub dedicated to you, Carragher's. What must that be like?
I'd rather have the statue. Not outside Goodison, no, I can say that. Well, actually, I mean, my daughter's over in New York at the moment. She's living there, and she was there last couple of nights ago for the England game. So, I mean, basically, it's a Liverpool fan. He's an Irish guy. He's a huge Liverpool fan. He had 4 or 5 bars over there. Yeah. And he just asked if he could call it Carragher's, basically. So I think what happened is he's come over for the game. He hasn't been able to get hold of Steven Gerrard. So he's basically come and got me. And, so I think he was going to get called Gerrard, and now it's Carragher's. Well, listen, James, get in there. You're more than welcome. Have a few bevies on me, no problem.
Why? That's very kind of you, but why would I, as an Evertonian, go in there? It'd be like going in the Death Star. And
well, you haven't seen somewhere. I love you, James. I thought, you know, I might break you. You know what I mean?
I can go into. I'm going to my kitchen when I want to see silver stuff. It's fine, you know what I mean? And yeah, like, I'm mates with Brian McLaughlin, so I know the story. But like, no, I mean, no disrespect to anyone.
Are you going to pass on that?
I'm giving her a swerve, mate, even with free beer.
Well, you should have gone tonight. The legend Pete Price is in there. He just sent me a message. He's in there. So
really?
whether that entices you or change it away, I don't know.
I'll pass, mate. Thank you.
So, what do you reckon? I think the Super League is going to come, Jamie.
I mean, it was interesting. There's something set up. I haven't started following it on Twitter. It's what have you seen that Twitter account where is just pumping out the Super League information that I'm not sure the name of it. It's not like a bogus account. It's their account, like Juventus, Real Madrid, and back. It's like someone's doing something for them. Yeah. But the stuff at Juventus a couple of weeks ago, did you see that?
Yeah.
With the whole board.
I did do, yeah.
So that might have just stopped in its tracks. But I agree with you, Nev. I don't think it's going anywhere. The only problem is this Super League. We've got the Super League. the Premier League, the Super League financially.
Yeah.
That's why the Super League's getting created, because these teams can't get their head around our team in 10th position can earn as much as them as a Real Madrid or a Bayern Munich or an AC or an Inter Milan. They can't get their heads around it. And it's just basically the success of the Premier League. And that's what frustrated me with the Premier League teams. I couldn't believe how naive they were. I was like, they need you. You don't need them.
Why would you do that? Yeah. Why would you? Yeah.
Why? You know, you've got them where you want them. Let's not forget, for years and years, they've always had more money than us. Real Madrid and Barcelona always bought the most expensive players. The Milan, the Italian, exactly.
Italy, yeah.
And now we've got it. They wanted to jump into bed. They weren't doing that for us 20 years ago. When Gary Lineker's going to Barcelona, they're not Barcelona aren't doing a favour, are they? You know, or Ian Rush goes to Juventus. You know, these type of things. So I couldn't understand the English clubs. I thought they were so naive. But I think the English clubs have been massively spooked by the supporters. So I understand the foreign clubs will be trying to get this going, but it can't be a Super League without the English teams. It just can't.
Yeah. But it'll come.
I agree, Nev. To be honest, since I was a kid, I'm reading football magazines. I've always been reading about this Super League, and I think that was probably the closest we came. But I think the power of the people in this country was a massive block, and I think that will have put our clubs on the back foot for a good decade. I do think that, not the foreign clubs, because their fans wanted to get involved and wanted the Super League, but I think our clubs would have been really spooked by the power of the supporters in all the clubs.
But don't you think it's going to change when the big clubs start streaming their own games? Yeah.
And to be honest, I think that will come at some stage, you know. I mean, I'll be honest with you, and it's not in terms of a money thing, but when you think about the way of the world now, it is mad when you think you can't watch your team play at 3 o'clock away from home. You know, if you want to watch an Everton away game and it's on 3, you can't watch it. Liverpool at 3 o'clock, it's like, I know every other team televised, but I'm not saying that from a monetary point of view. I'm just saying how the world is technical wise, what we've all got with iPads, phones, computers. The rest of the world is watching our team and we can't in our own country. I do find that bizarre. And I think there has to be a way around that. But you're right, Neville. If that does happen, people will be making a financial gain from it. But it just feels strange in the way the world is now that you can't actually watch your football team play certain games.
I don't know, you know, if you go to some pubs on County Road, you know, you're all right, like.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Don't you think, though, that will then split the Premier League once they do that?
Yeah, maybe you're right, Nev. Maybe, you know, I'm just thinking maybe from a selfish point of view as a wanting to watch Liverpool when they're kicking off at 3 o'clock. And I'm sure every supporter's like that. But the bigger picture, you know, you may well be right that, you know, will have an adverse effect on the haves and the have-nots.
Isn't the 3 o'clock thing a legacy from the pool? Like Littlewood? I think that was the actual rule. You couldn't do it because it affected the gambling on the pools, and the pools was that much of a. They started reading out on the BBC the results because of the pools, and it literally intrinsically. I think, I'm not certain, but I believe it's like a bylaw, like like a remnant bylaw. I'm sure there's a link to the actual.
Well, we'll get the blame because that was the Moores family, wasn't it?
Blues. It was the Moores family. Of course it was. Yeah, it was.
So my final question then for you, I suppose, is, you know, you're on Sky and all that now. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do?
To be honest, Nev, I was at one club for, you know, for probably, what was that? Probably almost 30 years. I've been at Sky now about 12 years. I've been with my wife 25. I've never moved out really. I mean, I'm a stayer wherever I am, but I don't think I would go into coaching or management. No. I don't see that. I love football. I'm obsessed with the game, but I don't see it because I think it'd be arrogant of me to think I could, having done TV work for so long and not done coaching badges, or I'm not saying coaching badges is the be all and end all, but, you know, learning your mistakes, being on the pitch, man management, taking a team meeting, you know, all these things that, you know, you're learning as you go on. I think I could just roll up and do that somewhere, I think that would be incredibly arrogant, you know, considering the work that gets put in by so many coaches and managers up and down the country. So no, I wouldn't go into the football side of things, really. So you might have to put up with me talking about sixes and eights and false nines, Nev, if that's all right.
When did people not play between the lines? That's called a pitch.
I'm going to use that.
Yeah, and to be, I've heard you lot got slaughter all the goalies all the time. I'm thinking, so mind they wouldn't have to do now if you didn't get off your ass, would they?
But what about when a goalie comes out and he makes a save and he starts screaming at everyone? That's your job. That's what you're supposed to do.
I don't get that. Do you know that's the main difference between your fella and our fella? Is he's calm and everything seems to be calm around him.
Yeah.
And then come to Jordan, and Jordan's, whatever happens, he has a rant. It's like, do you know what I mean? He just got to have a rant at somebody.
He does have a rant.
Well, his way of coping with the pressure, but do you know what I mean? I like the way Alison just goes about it. It's nice and calm. And I do think it does settle everybody else down, because you don't need, you know, whatever happens, you don't need somebody ranting in your ear every 5 minutes, do you?
No, I agree. And I think some of the keepers I played with, I don't think it's just for the players. You can sense when you've got a keeper who brings calm to the actual stadium. I think that's as important as what he does to his own players, because there's nothing worse than, you know, when a crowd's nervous around their own goalkeeper. You can just feel it. It's just there constantly. So, no, I think, I totally agree. You always felt sort of like that when you have a goalkeeper who's a little bit like that and just spreads that calm through the team. But I think Pickford's been brilliant, hasn't he, for Everton, sort of, certainly since Lampard's come in. I think he's done really well.
Better.
Yeah.
He's done better.
He made some saves last year that kept us up, like, you know what I mean? Definitely.
Look, without him and the Charlton, we do not stay in that league last year. 100%.
I still think he's got a lot to learn, Jamie, to be fair.
Yeah, no. Listen, I agree with you. You know, he's England's number one, and notoriously, and this is not, you know, a dig really, but normally England's number one would be playing for one of the teams challenging for a title or whatever. The fact he's at Everton, and at this moment, sort of the last sort of 4 or 5 years of probably being a mid-table side, really shows that, like, you know, the foreign goalkeepers in the league have really come in and had a huge, you know, presence. In the past, you'd always, as I said, the England goalkeeper would be, you know, Seaman be at Arsenal, or, you know, Peter Shilton or Ray Clements, you know, going further backs. But it's not been like that as so much of late.
Do you not think, though, you know, when you're going on about like goalkeepers are different now, they're not, are they? Because what happens, you know what happened in our day, ball comes back to me, you've got somebody running at you to try and assault you, right? And you've got everybody coming towards you. Very rarely at our place did the fullbacks go wide for the back pass. So you're always under pressure. Now, they're very rarely under pressure when they get the ball. So how is it so difficult now what to play from the back? To be fair, I could still pass the ball out from the back now because no one presses you. And if they do, you won't you? So I don't know where the mistakes come about, oh, he's got to be a good kicker. Well, does he? Because all you're passing is 15 yards.
Yeah. No, I agree, because people used to say to me about, like, oh, I was just a stopper and you know, getting on the ball and passing. But because the game became more technical, it's as much as the people off the ball, because they're actually giving you an angle, as you said, Nev. So in the past, if no one's there to pass to, you're going to kick it. But when you're getting the ball now as a goalkeeper, you've got 3 or 4 options. It gives you the option to do both. And I'm the same as the game sort of went on. And Brendan Rodgers came on, and he wants to play really football and getting it at the back. But it wasn't that no one could play at the back. It's just that. And then people would be surprised. Or when Arsene Wenger came in, people were saying, oh, look at Tony Adams, he can play from the back now. It wasn't that he was a different player. It was just that everyone else wanted the ball and we're giving him options. So as you say, he's only making a 15-yard pass. He is a professional footballer. You know what I mean? It's like, I just think people, they make so many angles now. People want the ball in positions maybe in the past we wouldn't give it to them. That then people who make that pass, we say, oh, they're good on the ball, he's better on the ball, and, you know, the game's changed. But I just think it's the whole mentality of, you know, taking possession, you know, constantly in different parts of the pitch.
Yeah, and my other thing is, what's better, 300 passes in a goal or 3 passes in a goal?
Oh, 3 passes in a goal. Gives you more time to get other ones.
And yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why my thing with Burnley was, what's the difference between 3 passes and 300 passes? And why shouldn't somebody work out their team to beat somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, well, you look at, there was a goal this season that Man City scored. I think it was 2 passes. Ederson just put it right over the top for Haaland. He knocked the defender over and he went round the goalie and put it in. So, you know, as I said, go back to Van Gaal, Pep Guardiola. There's so many different ways to play football. That's what makes it the game it is.
But it's not, is it? Because they all play the same way, don't they?
I know, but what I'm saying is those managers now and again can do something a bit different, which shows you that you can do different things and go different ways, and we don't all have to play the same.
But do you reckon you'd be all right at the back these days?
I would be if you were fucking behind me.
Has anybody else got any questions for Jamie?
No, that's his 45 minutes and he's been done marvellous. That's great.
Cheers, Nev, James, Dave.
Cheers,
Keith,
Jamie. Thank you.
Jamie.
A big thank you to everyone who's joined us today. A big thank you to Bootle's finest, Jamie Carragher. Thank you to Keith Mullen. Thank you to Dave Feely. And a big thank you to Neville Southall, who's brought us all today. Oh. A big thank you. I've gone cold. Sorry. That's what cop-outs do to me. All right, 1, 2, 3. A big thank you to everyone who's joined us today. A big thank you to Jamie Carragher, Bootle's finest. And a big thank you to Keith Mullen and Dave Feely. But a big thank you most of all to Neville Southall, who's brought us all together. Thank you for listening to 90 Minutes with Neville Southall. We look forward to seeing you again.